Where you at? And then he hung up on me. All right, you dialing in or what are you doing? Running late? Okay, well, we'll see you when you're on here. Yep. Yep, you ready? Four 691221239. Passcode 674670. Number. All right, we'll talk to you in a few. All right, I'm just gonna give Mr. Tanzi a few more minutes. He's just dialing in. All right, 7:32. I'm gonna get this thing rolling. Greg's he's a little late, but I know he's gonna dial in. So good evening, everybody. Welcome to the March 8th edition of the Rockland Zoning Board of Appeals. Let's see. Everybody should be aware that this open meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube as we speak. Let's see. All members of the board are participating remotely. That would be Mr. Baker Sr., myself, Rob Rosa, Mr. Galley, Mr. Baker Jr., Mr. Haynes, and as soon as he gets here, Mr. Greg Tanzi will all be attending remotely. Rules of the meeting. Everybody that does not have their full name in the title bar for your Zoom, you're gonna have to have that in there. If not, I'm gonna have to bounce you, and you're not gonna be able to get back into the meeting. So I would suggest that anybody that does not have their full name, excluding Deb, that's Deb Shuttlesworth, anybody that doesn't have their full name in the title block, you're gonna have to log out and then log back in with your full name. So that being said, I would entertain a motion to open the public meeting.
Moved.
Second.
Got a second? All right, so roll call. We're gonna do Mr. Baker Senior.
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Mr. Galley
Yes.
and Mr. Baker Jr.
Yes.
All right, because Greg.
And Mr.
Oh,
Haynes.
Tim. All right, Tim. Mr. Haynes, I'm sorry, you were hidden there. I apologize. Mr. Haynes.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. All right, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We do have 5 members because Greg is still not here. Mr. Galley, I'm going to ask you to step up. Is that okay?
Okay. Yes.
All right. So Deb, I'm not sure if you're having internet problems. I see every once in a while you have a couple windows open. I don't know if she can hear us or not.
She's muted.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm trying to use my other computer. It's not working. I'm on this one. I'm fine.
Yeah, we can't do that.
I know. Thank
Member
you.
of the, member of the public tried to do that the last time. It caused major issues. All right, so just so we're aware, let's see, we got the meeting open. Let me read the legal ad. 7:30 PM, remotely conducted public hearing will be held by the Rockland Zoning Board of Appeals on Tuesday, March 8th, 2022. At 7:30 PM on the application submitted by WN Realty LLC, 61 Acord Park Drive, Rockland, Massachusetts, 02370, care of Stephen M. Guard Esquire, Guard Law LLC, for a special permit pursuant to sections 415-21.3 Route 3 quarter sign overlay district and 415.24 non-conforming uses to allow applicant to construct and maintain a monopole off premises electronic billboard pursuant to zoning bylaw 415-21.3 and the development and impact fee host community agreement by and between the applicant and the town of Rockland dated December 7, 2021. Being a portion of the real property at the premises known as and numbered 61 Acord Park Drive, Rockland, Massachusetts. The property is located in the Business 2 zoning district, section 415-14, and the Route 3 quarter sign overlay district, section 415-21.3. of the bylaw, and it's further is further identified as map 5 lot 11 on the Rockland Assessor's maps. The owner of the property is WN Realty LLC, 24 Summit Drive, Hingham, Massachusetts, 02043. The applicant and all interested parties are advised to check the town website and the zoning board's webpage for additional information. Remote meeting details will be on the agenda posted on the town's website. Okay, so just as a matter of course, voting on this is going to be Mr. Baker Sr., myself, Mr. Galley, Mr. Baker Jr., and Mr. Haynes. I still don't see him. Mr. Tanzi is still not here yet. I'm assuming he'll dial in when he is able. All right. Mr. Guard, Attorney Guard, what's going on, sir?
How are we doing tonight, folks? I have the privilege of representing WN Realty for the one and only billboard application sign in Rockland. So it's an exciting moment for us and for the town of Rockland, I think. Rob, do you want to wait for Mr. Tanzi, or do you want me to just go?
Again, he's not a voting member at this point, and quite honestly, I know it's going to take him a little while. He was just getting in from work. So
let's get after it. We're good. We'll be fine. Let's get after it then. So what I have submitted in the package, folks, is obviously a bit of an extensive amount of documents, but I think the best thing for me to do is direct your attention. I'll start with directing your attention to the narrative. And Rob, do you want to want me to share the screen, or do you
yes,
want
please do. I don't think I have to give you permission. I think you can just do that. If you want to do that,
pop up here. Let me pop up here, and oh yeah, here we go. Sharing the screen. Let's see. We're gonna share. And can you guys see what I'm looking at here? I hope.
Nice boat.
Thank you. All right. So this is the narrative that I wrote in an effort to quantify the performance standards of your Route 3 corridor overlay district for off-site billboards. I thought it would be helpful for everyone to kind of distill it all down into one document. And having done that, there's a quick background paragraph. Then there's, of course, the dimensional requirement review. And then I go through the individual performance standards of the findings that I believe the board will need to make in order to grant the special permit. Hopefully this will make preparing and drafting the special permit pretty simple by just cut and pasting and adopting the stuff that I have, the responses that I have. So the applicant proposes to construct and install and maintain and operate the pursuant to the municipal code 415-21.3, as Mr. Rosa had read in the public announcement, a monopole commercial off-premise double-sided electronic billboard sign which directs attention to a business, commodity, service, or attraction sold, offered elsewhere than the premises. That's right out of your bylaw. That's exactly what the purpose of the bylaw is, and that's exactly what our purpose is of this application. 61 Airport Park Drive, located in the Route 3 corridor. The lot is located on a cul-de-sac at the end of Accord Park Drive and contains about 59,475 square feet of land of upland and 68.47 feet of frontage along the cul-de-sac. What I could not, and I'll interject here for a second, there's two prongs to the application. One is the special permit under the overlay district, which is easily identified. However, I did apply for potentially, if the board saw fit or necessary, a non-conforming use or finding that this isn't more non-conforming than existing use because of the frontage. I was unable to determine whether or not this was a pre-existing non-conforming lot from that perspective. It does appear to have been laid out okay, but I wanted, out of an abundance of caution, I put in both in the application just in case you folks thought it was necessary. I think it's probably not, but anyway. So the lot is, the site is occupied by the Collision Center. It's an automotive repair facility that is actually operated by the ownership of the applicant tonight, WN Realty LLC, Richard Walker, and his partner. So that is also, it's not just the land, we don't own it, but we also kind of operate the business that's there as well. Special permit by zoning board 2015 was allowed the collision center to exist. So if I move down a little bit, the improvements to the premises will be to construct a electronic billboard sign with an overall height of 59 feet above the average grade. The board itself, the face will be 672 square feet, which is the maximum allowed by the bylaws. You can see zero differential. The board will be 14 by 48. The face of the board will be 14 by 48, which is what is allowed by the bylaw. It will have no more than two sides, the maximum allowed by the bylaw. Now, this gets a little bit tricky in the sense, but our proposal fits into the bylaw on the different levels of elevation above grade. So the first height that you see is less than or equal to 50 feet. That is above the grade of Route 3. We are going to be 49.5 feet above the grade of Route 3. Now, the reason that the pole is taller than that is because the base of the pole is well below the grade of Route 3. So the height of the pole overall has to be less than or equal to 70 feet of the base, the bottom of the sign, I'm sorry, above the grade at the site. So if you picture the grade at the site, the bottom of the pole to the bottom of the sign, in Rockland, it can't be more than 70 feet. We're only going to be 45 feet. So we're well within that 70-foot dimensional requirement. The pole has to be less than or equal to 100 feet from the Route 3 property line, or the side of the highway layout. We're 33.4, so we're well within that 100 feet. The sideline setback is greater than or equal to 30 feet with 33.7. So we're a few feet outside of the setback. Now, for informational purposes, the distance from the closest residential is 650 feet, which is across Route 3. However, my recollection was the distance from the Rockland neighborhood is 1,055 feet and also across Route 3. As you know, the pole is going to be located in a very commercialized district. There's a car dealership, the coastal Nissan on one side, the collision center on another, an office building, and various uses. So, and then of course, separating that from the residential component, or even in the most direct abutter across Route 3 is actually a commercial building that's directly across Route 3. So the next section is, I took this right from the bylaw, the performance stand, and tried to create almost like an application for the special permit, in that I addressed each of the special permit performance standard or findings that would be necessary for you to grant us the permit. D1 is a special permit use, obviously off-premises billboard for a term of 50 years. That is by the host community agreement, which is a copy of which is executed with the town back in December and included in the application materials before you tonight. The billboard is fewer than 100 feet from Route 3 layout. We talked about that already. The billboard is located in a commercial district, not create any material visual impact on residential property, the nearest of which is 650 feet. That was one of the impact things. The nearest residential neighborhood use in Rockland is 1,055 feet. So E3, the billboard will be affixed to a permanently installed support structure from the ground. The billboard would employ electronic technology that will automatically control the light level of the sign faces at night and other reduced lighting conditions. The sign itself is being designed by Photometrics and RMG Engineering. Both the calculations for the structural components to build the pole and the supporting structure are included in your materials to withstand the relative wind loads that are necessary for this to exist through in times of high winds. There's also photometric plans that are in the materials as well. This is a very typical standard a use that allows electronic billboards to dim at night and to adjust the lighting automatically by the environment. The billboard back and support structures will be of a color to blend in with the background, agreeable to the board. I think typically we were thinking it would probably be gray, like most of these poles, but certainly if the board thought another color might be appropriate, happy to consider that. But right now it's a standard gray pole. The billboard will not be illuminated, animated, projected, moving, or give the illusion of movement or otherwise comply with that section. You don't allow that in the bylaw. The billboard will not have physical movement of any kind. There'll be no, rotating arms or lit cigarettes at the top or anything like that. Won't have any of that. The billboard will copy will not change more than once every 8 seconds. That will comply with your bylaw. The billboard is not a tri-vision billboard. It's just a 2-sided standard, LED billboard. The billboard will not display video, will not have sound, and will not have pyrotechnics or will otherwise comply with these sections, meaning E, F, and G.
So it's going to be pretty boring.
It's going to be boring. It's going to be basically a rotating, it's like a rotating painted billboard. It's just going to rotate through. One of the things that didn't come out, there are some other things that didn't come out in the performance standards of the bylaw, some good stuff, like, I know it's not a consideration of the ZBA, but, host agreements, you're very familiar with those. They provide money back to the town. So that's great. It'll offer the town some time on the board too, as well. Again, not really relevant to zoning because it's not a requirement of the zoning bylaw, but nonetheless, there'll be safety and informational displayed messages. I think we agreed with the town that the board will be shut off for most of the night from like 12 to 5 and then 12 midnight to 5 in the morning. I forget what the exact dates, times are. That may be a condition of your special permit. We can certainly go back and look at the HCA to make sure that that coincides with the HCA. There will also be a 10-foot wide landscape buffer around the base of the support structure as proposed in the plan. It's required by your bylaw. Honestly, this is really in the middle of the corner of a parking lot. The landscape buffer around it, it really seems superfluous in my mind. I would kind of hope that maybe the board would see fit to either minimize the necessity of that or just not require it, because frankly, it's a parking lot. There's no other vegetation around this area. We're going to stick a bunch of bushes around the bottom of this pole, and there's just asphalt, concrete, and cars parking around it. So that having been said, if you go to this is the assessor's map. Actually, the best thing to do is let's go over to the plan set here. Okay, so this is, as you can see, this is the kind of a blow up of the area where the pole in the sign is going to go. It shows there is a fire road that actually goes around the entire building, that will be able to go around the back of the sign and all the way around the back of the building. So it's really well accessible to safety equipment, whether it's police, fire, anything that needs to get back there will be able to get back there. It's already set up for the building itself. So really quite a really good spot for this particular use, in the sense that it's already kind of set up for that. Let's go back to the ZBA application. I'm going to roll right down to the last thing. I found a picture in the materials for the sign company that makes the sign, that does make the sign, to give everyone sort of a visual idea of what the sign will look like. So this is the closest sign that I found in their materials. It's a 14 by 48 LED, and it's a 2-faced kind of V-shaped sign. So basically, and actually the vegetation that's around the sign will be very similar to this. If you could picture the car dealership and the roof of the car dealership and the air conditioners on the top of that, this sign, the bottom of this sign is only going to be about 12 to 13 feet above the top of the air conditioners, above that building. So it's not going to look like the one at the Hanover Mall, and it's not going to look like the one in Weymouth where it just towers over everything. It's really can't, because the base is so low, versus it can only be 50 feet above Route 3. So our grade is not on a hill. Like, those are up on a hill. So they seem to stand out more when you drive by. This is going to be a sign that's kind of nestled into the environment pretty well, in the sense that it's not going to stick out above the trees like a sore thumb. I hope that was helpful to everyone. Let's see. let me just zoom out here a little bit. Yeah, okay. So one of the things I think the performance standard did require us to show the full site plan so that it shows the layout of the parking on the site and the traveled routes and both the automobile travel routes and pedestrian travel routes. As you can see, the site's already well laid out with circular access around the building, and then of course parking laid out in front. Not that it really matters as far as the parking, I mean, parking for a pole, there'll be service vehicles back there from time to time to work on the pole. But and that's really about all I have as far as that goes. And I'll certainly, with me, of course, is Ed O'Sullivan. He's our outdoor advertising consultant. And I don't know if Al is on. The McKenzie Engineering did the design in the location of the pole. And of course, Mr. Walker is on as well for any kind of like specific questions regarding the use of the sign itself. So there you have it. Pretty straightforward. It's going to look like the other billboards. It's going to meet your bylaw hands down all the way.
Attorney Guard, thank you. Appreciate that. Can I get you to stop sharing screen so we can get an idea of who I'm talking to here?
Yes, there you go.
Perfect. All right. Mr. Tanzi still is yet to come in, so I'm not really. Oh, there he is. Mr. Tanzi, how you doing?
All right.
You weren't here. I had to get things rolling. I've got Steve voting tonight, so you'll be your opinion is always welcome. But Steve's going to be taking the place of the voting tonight. You okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. With that, I'm going to open it up to the board. Mr. Baker Senior, the floor is yours.
I have no question.
That's a first.
That's how we
I
roll.
appreciate that. I'm gonna reserve your seat for round two if it comes down to it. Mr. Galley, you're up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure. It's not that it's a big deal, but is it like an electric sign that you change remotely, or is it okay?
Yeah. So it's all pre-programmed, but it'll be all programmed remotely off-site. You'll have access to it over the internet, and then you can change the content of the sign at any moment. But your bylaw requires that it can't change. The advertisements can't change more than every 8 seconds because they don't want it flashing. It'll have
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So it would obviously do that, and then of course the sign will shut off. Programmed to be shut off at the times. I was just flipping through the outdoor advertising agreement, Steve, to just see I forgot what the hours. I'm pretty sure it's like middle of the night till like 4 or something like that. Yeah, correct.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I did follow, but that was the type, and that helped explain that, clarify it for me. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Steve. Mr. Baker Jr., talk to me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Mr. Guard or to whomever on his team wishes to answer. Just so I understand the layout of the sign, it's V-shaped, is that correct?
Right.
Essentially one side facing Route 3 South, one side facing Route 3 North?
Yeah, it's really designed to maximize the visibility from the highway and minimize the way the sign will project to any light, will be distracting to other people that are on the road. That's why the V-shape, it seems to be the preferred method of design on all these poles now, because when you have only one flat way or one the other way, it tends to bother somebody. So this is a great way to kind of make it so that they can design it so it's correct on both ways. Yeah.
Okay. In that regard, I assume the same message is going to be flashing, or I shouldn't say flashing, same message is going to be displayed on each side at the same time?
That's a good question. I don't think that's actually necessary, because I think you sell it by time and hours. So there may be, and it may be someone prefers a northbound sign over a southbound sign. So I wouldn't say that may be true.
But whatever is being displayed, is the display on each side going to be changing at the same time?
You know what? I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure that would be required, but if it is, I guess we could.
And the only reason I'm asking the question, and maybe Mr. O'Sullivan can address this, if they're changing it at different times, I don't know whether that would have the effect of sort of introducing a flashing appearance to it.
Yeah, I
So-
suppose that's a good question, and I'm not skilled enough to know that about sign designs. But Ed, would you know that off the top of your head, or Richard?
This is Ed O'Sullivan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the members. I don't know that the sides, each side would run, if you will, simultaneously. And to be concerned about it showing a flashing, the sign doesn't flash. It sort of just changes.
Cool.
I mean, it isn't as if there's some blast that comes out. It just kind of changes. It's on the same level of lighting on within the regulations of the Commonwealth and whatever the HCA has. So I wouldn't want to say that they do change simultaneously because the times shift, and you're also adding different content during the course of the day, given that there's requirement for the state to have a certain amount of time. We do expect to be donating time to the town activities, private, charitable activities, that kind of thing. And the other thing that I just want to just bring up is on the HCA, the hours of operation, the sign is shut off from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m.
Yeah.
So 5 to 1 a.m. are the hours of operation.
So while the minimum period of display is 8 seconds, it certainly can be more than that.
It can be, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Anywhere from 8 to 10 seconds.
Okay. And just to clarify something that Mr. Gard had mentioned, you had mentioned a rotating sign. I assume by that you mean the message and
Yes.
not the sign
Yeah,
itself. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No moving parts. No moving
yes.
parts.
That's what I like to hear.
If I may also just interject, there was a comment earlier about a tri-vision sign, and that's a much different piece of equipment. That's 3 particular advertisements that physically rotate the panels inside the sign to come up with like a new message on every turn or flip as it is. Here, it's managed remotely. As I said, it's monitored by the manufacturer whose offices are outside of Atlanta. And they have a massive data board that shows every board that they manufactured in the country. And they watch it for any errors, anything that may be wrong, and messages are sent in. And there's also, of course, the use of the board for public safety and federal public safety are requirements, and also things that we would do anyway.
Okay. The license you have from the DOT, is that something that needs to be renewed every year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And winding down here, you had mentioned the buffer. And I guess we can get into a discussion at some point of the size that the board would prefer on that. Is the base of the sign going to be fenced?
No, we didn't plan on a fence around the base, I don't think. Let me go back and look at the plan. I don't think we were talking about that. We just did the plantings for the buffer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see this. So there was no fence. The pole itself will not be accessible by, scoundrels, so to speak, because there'll be a lock ladder and a tube that can, it would all be locked. You wouldn't be able to get into it.
Although never underestimate the ingenuity of scoundrels.
Having been one probably in my youth, I would agree with that. So,
and finally, you had mentioned the fire road.
Yeah.
Is that something that's already in place, or is that going to be changed to accommodate the sign?
No, it's actually already in place. So brilliantly enough, there's plenty of room back there to maintain the fire lane and build a sign on that triangle portion of the lot. So
Okay.
it's really laid out for that already. Yeah.
And something that's very often, if not almost always, asked in these meetings. And I don't know if it's necessary given the type of structure that this is, because quite honestly, I've never participated in a hearing involving a billboard. And maybe I can defer to the chairman on this. Is this something that typically the input from the fire department and or the police department would be sought?
Seeing as though they're the ones that would be reporting to an incident or an issue here. Might be something. We've never. I'll be honest though, we've never, when it came to cell towers.
I was going to say cell tower.
We've never looked to them for input on that unless it was in a weird location, like when it was just off the properties of like White Road. That was a different story. This is This is in and around nothing but business and commercial properties. We could put it, we could put it out to the board to see if we think it's necessary. I can say this, I'm looking at the plan. They do have a pretty wide, what looks like 2-lane fire lane all the way around the building. There's some other questions I need to ask about that when it gets to my turn, but I don't necessarily think it's required. But again, I say this all the time. This is not my decision. If the board feels that the fire department and the police department should get their eyes on this, that would be good. I would think that's fine. That's something that the board has to kind of make a motion, make a decision on. If you want to make a motion on that, I would entertain that. And if we want to push that, we can.
You know, for right now, I was just inquiring. That's all.
Okay. Yeah. Right. I don't think it's necessary, but like I said, this is not my decision. So it's whatever the flavor of the board is.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Guard and gentlemen. And that for now is it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Appreciate that. Mr. Haynes, you're up, sir.
Oh, I wanted to ask about the photometrics. I looked through all the documents, and you mentioned in your summary that they were in there, and for the life of me, I could not find them. And I was curious about the light levels and how far they were traveling. And I'm particularly sensitive to our closest residential area frankly, has been under siege by some other applications. And I just want to make sure that, they're not inundated with light and, looking at the billboard, from their homes. So if we could talk about the photometrics, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that there's not a photometric plan like you would typically see in a commercial building with a parking lot lighting where we could show you where that light's going to end up. The light is up so high, it's not going to spill over onto neighboring properties. The only way you could see it is if you were looking up at it from a distance. You're going to see it from a distance, but it's not going to shine into any residential homes at this stage. We did a full site visit and drove around, and most of any of these signs, the light will dissipate long before it gets to the 1,000 feet or 650 feet. And there's also in between that, there's different elevations between the house and the pole. The house is the closest house in the pole, and then there's vegetation in between, like there are trees and whatnot. So when I said of photometrics, I was referring to the Formetco. They have a plan that I submitted in the plan set. I think it's actually in the plan set that shows the face and how it's lit. Like it just shows all the numbers that we would normally see like on the ground, I think, for a photometric plan. But I think Ed could probably speak to better how that light is managed than I can, but I think it's not going to project. It's not going to cast like a green light on someone's backyard or bedroom. That's not the way it's going to work. If you look at it, you could see it and you could see it, you know what I mean? But it's not going to cast light into their homes or onto the street. If it did that, it would be distracting to the motorists, which are between us and the houses anyway. Ed, is that a fair statement?
It is, Stephen. Again, Mr. Chairman, thank you. It is of a mind to approve the special permit. We then go to the state for the state process, and the state process has pretty heavy regulations under the Code of Mass Regulations, 700 CMR 3.00 at all, and it monitors or I should say, it mandates light levels. It also takes into account for approval at the state level, the character of the neighborhood, the character of the community where the board is proposed. In this case, being where it is in the industrial zone with houses no closer than 1,000+ feet away, I believe it'll fit under the state regulations very well. The sign, think of it as, the old signs used to have these big halogen lights sort of flashing at it, and that had uplight, that had spillover, that was visible in a lot of directions. These signs now under the technology is such that the signs are backlit and they really just project the sign itself. It doesn't emit light, if, as you think about a flashlight or spotlight, it emits light just for the purposes of visibility of the sign. So as Steve said, to drive it, you're going to see it straight on. But I can tell, at least looking at the engineering plans, from the angle and for where the homes are across the highway, I don't believe there's going to be any light trespass that, again, somebody might think it is more than another, but I don't see it given the distance and the angles of the sign.
Right. So this is not going to be like the Fenway lights across the highway.
No.
They're not going to be in there trying to sleep at night.
No, complete different technology.
Good.
This was the page that I was talking about. It's the last, I think it's the second last page in the plan set, if you can see this. It's kind of hard to see, but it just showed the layout of the pixels of the light, of the sign itself, and it describes how the light is made and works. But again, it will not project light onto, won't even touch the ground. It'll have the light itself, but it's not going to cast light onto the premises off-site.
But that's the main thing. One of our criteria for approval is a finding that it's not, adversely affecting our abutting neighborhoods. And so I want to make sure that we've taken that into consideration.
It's not like the Seinfeld episode where Kramer was the light. What was that? I forget the fast food joint that was glowing into his.
Yes.
It's not going to be like that.
Wasn't it Kenny Rogers Chicken?
That's what it was. Wow.
Yes. Well, I happened to work on a project at one time in the theater district, and we put in a blade sign. It was an old theater and it had actually moving lights, and people in the hotel nobody could sleep in the hotel. We did another sign, a billboard approval in the neighborhood. So I just wanted to ask, for the life of me, I couldn't remember if this is actually our first or if this is our second. And two are allowed, but are we revisiting a proposal, or this is your first application?
Yeah, this is our first application, and my recollection, the bylaw only allows for one board in town. So
I think it allows two, but
pretty sure it's one, but I could be wrong. I haven't.
Sorry,
There's another billboard up in the center of Rockland.
Oh yeah, maybe there's a fixed one. You're right. I
Fixed
think
one.
there's a fixed
Yes.
one up in the center of Rockland. Yes, yeah. But in the Route 3 corridor, I'm sorry, one's allowed.
on number 7, there shall be no more than 2 billboards in the Route 3 corridor sign overlay district. But I believe, well, in any case, I'm throwing it out there because I know I sat on a hearing for another billboard. So unfortunately, I don't see our town council.
I don't think that it couldn't have gone through.
I don't remember it. Yeah,
If we did, I'll be honest with you, I'm blanking on it. I'm blanking on if we did or not, but I don't know of another billboard in the Route 3 corridor that went up.
I mean, it doesn't exist, but
Right.
but we had the hearing. I'm pretty sure we okayed it.
All right.
So when
And again,
I
I'm also looking at the number 7, limitations on number of billboards. This is coming from the E code. There shall be no more than 1 billboard, double-sided in the Route 3 corridor sign overlay district.
do you know my what I have is the article that we voted on.
Yep.
So I wonder if it changed.
I think it changed.
I just what I have in my binder is the proposed.
Okay. I'm looking at that.
Yeah.
It was the town meeting articles. So I wonder if by the time that got there.
I had me questioning myself, Tim. I was like, wait.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. But
Yeah.
so I'm just going to throw it out there. I do have I don't know who else. If it was just well, Greg would have been here.
I've been on it too, but I'm blanking. I can't remember this.
So,
But then again, I can't remember what I ate for breakfast either, so that don't count.
I thought it was at the telephone building on the other side of the highway. There's a billboard there now, stationary one.
Where?
Longwater Drive. The telephone building, there's a billboard there on the property.
Well, the crazy, I mean, there's a community host agreement that's signed, so, you'd think somebody would be keeping track of this.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, you would think so. Bob, where are you talking about?
So it was in the
Right
same
at the corner
vicinity.
of Pond and Longwater Drive.
Pond and Longwater Drive.
Yeah,
All right, hold on.
there's a
hold on.
telephone building. And there's a billboard there.
Is it an on-premises billboard, Bob? Does it advertise for the business itself, or does it advertise
No.
for a new business?
I don't
Not
think it's really advertising right now because
It
Yeah.
was a community
Kinda
host
faded.
agreement, with payments to the town, the whole
the
bit.
real
That was
old one,
a part of that.
Come back. You said it's a real old one?
yes. It's not a,
Building on-
it's not lit or anything, it's just,
All right, the building on the corner.
Yeah.
Telephone building, little brick building.
right,
You're coming down Pond and you want to take a left onto Longwater. It's that corner on the corner, right?
on the left-hand side.
And you're talking about there's a sign kind of like right there.
There's a big billboard there. Yeah.
That's not a billboard, that's a sign. That's a two-post sign.
Two posts, well,
All right, you could do
big-
big difference between billboard and two-post sign.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm looking at Google Earth right now. I'm going through the street viewer and I know this area pretty well. So just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
that's why I mentioned it.
Okay, yeah, that is it. That's not technically a billboard. That's a two-post sign and that's 25 feet off the ground tops. But we're talking about something way different. All right. And to come back to the other billboard that we permitted at some point that I don't remember about this, I'm thinking that when they wrote up the community host agreement, they would have known this. I don't know of another billboard that's been erected in the town in this corridor. And I'm looking down the corridor right now.
Well,
So-
Rob, the corridor was just established a couple of years ago too. I mean, it wasn't like.
2019, I know. I did the
Yeah.
zoning. And I know. I've
Yeah.
got the zoning map right here.
Yeah, even if there was another sign that looked like a billboard, it's not a billboard under the bylaws definition.
That's
you
my
know.
point.
Well, I believe that this board has already granted a special permit for another billboard in
Well,
this district.
And you
So-
could have very well granted a special permit for another sign, but this is a billboard under the new bylaw, under the corridor that requires a host agreement for off premise.
I'm aware of what you're saying, and I'm telling you, I thought this was a duplicate application. It was virtually the same as what you're presenting. And so that's what caught my attention because we had another one.
Yeah, I don't, my client and I don't know of any other billboard, in the corridor that's permitted with a host agreement like our application. We don't know of it. So I'm at a loss I don't know what to say. I don't know.
Rob, if I may,
Please.
I was watching the selectmen's meeting when there was two proposals, this one and another one.
Right.
And the Board of Selectmen voted in favor of this one, not the other one, for the host of community agreement.
Correct.
So there's only one that's been approved by the Board of Selectmen for a host community agreement.
Okay.
And that's where it first has to start.
You're right. Mhm.
What do you think, Tim? I want to give you the benefit. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. If you know this.
It is not for me to decide. I mean, really, we should ask Attorney Galvin, if it's okay for us to proceed on this. I just want to make sure that we didn't already agree to another one. I'm with Bob. You would think the selectmen would know,
Right.
what they're doing. They might also be looking at the same, that somebody may not realize that we've limited it to one, they may be looking at the document where they were proposing doing it with two.
No, I don't think that's the case, Tim. Because the selectmen, they could have chosen both the host agreements that night. They only chose one, and I negotiated the host agreement with Bob Galvin himself. And we went back and forth with this as well as with Doug, the town administrator. So I can't imagine that somehow a previous host agreement and billboard special permit application slipped through the cracks before we came in and they gave us one.
I assure you that I'm not imagining that if the issue came before the board and had been voted on already. So notwithstanding you being the only one who's got it, we did have this, we had a hearing on it, and we've been down this road already with another applicant.
You remember where it was? You remember what property it was on?
Almost exactly the same vicinity. Almost.
Really?
I'm when I was reading this, I thought it was I literally thought it was the same. So
Okay.
Look, we don't have to hang up on it. I mean, we don't have to. We can certainly move forward. There can only be one, so that will just be.
I suppose that's up to us to figure out, right? I mean, we have to.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, I'm looking at the bylaw. It says the one. If Tim is usually, put it this way, when Tim says something like this, it's usually right. So
I respect his recollection for sure. I just wish I had more information on it. I could help distinguish that from this. I can only assume it was maybe a signed proposal that, was a business.
It was not.
He's adamant.
I'm not confusing the issue.
Mr. Galley, I see you raising your hand, sir.
Yes, I'm just wondering, and I don't want us to have a fruitless meeting tonight. Would we be able to go through the motions of the rest of the topic and put on a condition that as long as there's not another approved billboard that would take its slot, this could go forward if it were approved otherwise? Is that ridiculous?
It's not.
I just feel like we could, go through everything we want to go through and then say, approved if no other billboard beat to the punch.
I would say
completely concur with
previously
that.
approved. Well, yeah, previously approved under the bylaw. You know what I mean?
Something to that effect. Yeah, that's.
Attorney Guard, would that work for you?
What's that?
Attorney, would that work for you, Attorney Guard?
Yeah. I think if it said, a condition that, approval provided that there is not a previously approved billboard in the district under the bylaw.
Okay.
I don't, yeah. As long as we reference the bylaw section, what is it, 41523 2, whatever.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Then I'm okay. I mean, it is what it is.
All right, because then again, I don't know where, the selectmen don't have a meeting tonight, so I don't know where Attorney Galvin is. I could probably get a hold of him if he is available to come in here. But I
He's
think
on
we're
a
okay.
40B in Marshfield tonight, Bob, but
Rob, I'm on.
Tony's here.
Oh, Tony, I see you. Put your screen, put your thing on, put your camera on, so I know who's talking to me.
Sorry, 1 second.
All right, okay. We have our legal team here, so we're able to fit. We'll figure this out. All right.
So
Right.
here, 1 second. So a couple things. I think a condition that says so long as there's no previously approved billboard under the bylaw. I just kind of wonder who would and I don't know one way or another. I have no idea whether one was. So I think I'm in the same boat as everyone else. But if you approved it, then how does that get enforced? I would just question what would be the next step? There'd have to be some kind of research process and a confirmation that either it was or wasn't a previously approved application.
They would still have to get a building permit.
I was going to suggest that.
Bob Baker, Senior. I think you would know better than anybody if there's another billboard in this town.
There's only one up in the center of town.
Yeah, and that has nothing to do with what, that's been there
Right.
forever. That has nothing to do with this.
That's not in that corridor.
Mr. Rubel, I see you, and I see you, down in the bottom corner of my screen. Can I get some time with you, sir?
Yeah, there's been no permits issued for another billboard in the corridor,
Okay, so I'm gonna leave it at this.
but go ahead, Bob Baker was right. They did go to the selectmen, and they were two at one time. As far as I know, these are the only ones that got accepted through the selectmen.
And it's the only one that there have been no other billboard permits pulled for anything in this Route 3 corridor, correct?
That's right.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I'm gonna,
Rob, it wouldn't be a billboard building permit, it'd be the special permit. So there could, I suppose, be an instance where someone would have a special permit, but then hasn't exercised it yet. I don't know that. I'm just saying, I think it's the grant of a special permit rather than someone getting a building permit from Tom's office.
okay, so there could have been a special permit granted. They just never pulled a building permit.
And if it didn't lapse, then it might, I'm making all this up, but if it
No,
could have not
at this
lapsed
point,
yet,
you kinda have to.
someone still might have time to pull the building permit. I don't know, but
Right.
I think that all has to get figured out before you. I don't know how, like I said before, I don't know how a condition works if you were to approve this and then have a condition that says, but then we have to do all this research to make sure that there wasn't a other special permit before this.
Right.
I just don't know. I don't know. I don't know who does that, or you'd have to have a follow-up meeting probably.
Hey, Rob, through the chair, does the building inspector, Tom, does he have a recollection of seeing a plan for a special permit? Because he would see the plans. He would have been at the hearing too.
He definitely would have been here.
I would think he would have thought, and then anticipated a permit coming or an application for a building permit or something. The problem, go ahead, Tom. I'm sorry.
This is the first time I've ever seen anything on a billboard in this corridor, on Route 3 corridor, on this bylaw. I have never seen anything or seen any paperwork or gone to a zoning board where I have seen somebody applying for one.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I went to every meeting, but I've never known of another one.
Deb, I'm gonna have you say this. Where are you? Said something about another application submitted?
So when the Board of Selectmen was negotiating the host community agreement, the host
Yep.
agreement, another company submitted an application with a request that it be held as a backup application in case the agreement was never executed. It was sent back saying, no, we can't hold an application pending.
Okay.
So it was sent back to them, no action was taken.
Okay.
It was sent back to the applicant by us.
Yes,
Okay.
for Doug.
Yeah, Tim, does that provide you any further guidance?
No, I'm only raising the issue.
Yeah.
So,
No, and it's a good issue to raise. I just don't remember.
So I have no resolution for it. I'm just, so unfortunately, we don't have,
Mr. Chairman, if I.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, given now the doubt or concern in my mind raised by Mr. Haynes' recollection and the sort of odd situation as described by Mr. Riley, I don't know how we, by making this a condition, can place the burden on determining our prior action or lack of our prior action on the applicant. I think that's up to us by whatever mechanism to find out before we act on the application.
Mm-hmm.
So
That actually was going to be my next question. If we're headed to a continuance, what is the board's expectation of the applicants to prove a negative? Like, how do I prove that this didn't exist?
And again, I'm only talking as one member of the board. I don't think it's on you at all.
No, I don't think it's on the applicant whatsoever. I think it's on us to prove. If there was one, again, I don't remember it, but I know Tim's memory. So I'm backing up my board member here.
So what we have is at least condition number 8. So right, there is in place a signed, accepted host community agreement.
Right.
That's what we have.
Yep. Double side. Yeah.
Right, it is, I'm going to the application. I just want to make sure it's signed, accepted, it was voted on.
Oh yeah, no, I've got it fully executed impact fee host community agreement by and between the town of Rockland and WN Realty LLC. Going all the way down the bottom. This came directly from our website. Do executed and agreement December, does it 10th sound right?
Yeah, yes.
December 10th. Printed name. Richard Walker signed it. And Thomas Norton signed it. And 10th day. And who is this? I can't read the part. The notary signed it.
That's me.
Oh, that was you. Okay.
That's me.
My bad. Sorry, Steve.
It's all right.
Yeah, so we have this and then execute and then signed by all 5. Mike Laughlin, Karen Nyman, Larry Ryan, Tiffany, yep, she's there too. And Doug everybody signed it. Saying we definitely have it. Yeah. No, this is it. So if that's one of your concerns, Tim, we definitely have that in hand.
So
My concern is the uncertainty of surrounding what might have come before.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, this was voted on and put on the do I have it still up? The 2019 zoning map. So this is going back about 3 years. If they haven't exercised it within 2 years, I think it lapses. So it's a matter of if we did, when did we, and has it lapsed? So that's a concern. That's a concern. But
Mr. Chairman, may I add that?
Mr. O'Sullivan, please, sir.
Thank you, sir. It's my understanding that the special permit is good for 1 year. And I believe the practice would be to record it at the registry of deeds once gets past the appeal process, if you will. And so,
right.
So a research or a search of records at the registry might give you that knowledge. And again, it's a 1 year timeline from tonight backwards would be my assumption.
All right. Let me just ask a few questions. Let's see. Tim had a chance. Mr. Tanzi, you've been sitting back, relaxing. Time to step up. Talk to me. Do you have any questions for the applicant at this point?
They've pretty much been answered. A special permit requires some substantial initiation of construction within 2 years in order to be not to lapse. And it doesn't appear that if we granted a special permit, doesn't appear that that applicant has pulled a building permit for the sign. So if that special permit was granted more than 2 years ago, I'd say that permit has lapsed and has no standing.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too. Let's think about that for a little while. Do you have anything else you got to think about, got to say?
No, that's really the only other question that I had was how many signs are there in the corridor. That question has been answered. Weymouth has a corridor bylaw, and I know that there's one other sign, at least one other sign in Weymouth
Mhm.
Are there any other billboards in the neighboring corridors other than the Weymouth sign? And
I'd
that's,
have no idea. I'd have no idea.
that's really a question to.
I think the next one is down on 128 in Brain Street by the old Twin Plaza.
Well,
That's
Mr.
one
Chairman, if Mr. Chairman, I could throw in some information on that. There.
Please, Mr. O'Sullivan, go for it.
Thank you. In addition to the Weymouth sign on the north end of Route 3, there's, of course, the Hanover sign that we've talked about a little bit. There's a sign that was recently constructed in Marshfield that's sort of still buried in the trees, awaiting a tree cutting permit. There's been an approval of a sign at the Kingston transfer station. And that, to my knowledge, are the only built or approved locations on Route 3 to this point.
Can I ask you a question, sir? Where did you get that information? And you're on top of this, so and you
No,
were
common knowledge, industry knowledge, and
industry knowledge.
and they're also all the permits, and you can, under the Massachusetts Office of Outdoor Advertising, there's a permit registry where you can type in the town or the city or the company name or combination of filters to get up, to what's there.
All right. So it sounds like you've done this before.
I have.
Okay. Have you any chance you did that for the town of Rockland to see if there was anything?
No. No.
Okay. All right.
I don't know of anything that's gone on in Rockland. Again, there'd been talk in Pembroke that was blocked by certain folks that weren't interested in seeing Pembroke. Obviously, Marshfield has been built, and
No. Yeah, does Mr. O'Sullivan, your vocals went off. You're not muted, but we can't hear you.
No.
Nope.
Any better?
There we go. What happened there?
Well, just got rid of the earphones. So I was saying that the other one that's going to be built is up on Route 128 at the F1 Entertainment Race Center, and that apparently has been approved from what I understand. So that's
Sounds
the
good.
last one I know up and down from Braintree South.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Thank you,
Mr.
Chairman.
Tanzi, you got anything else?
No, that's it.
All right, my turn. What is the building that's there? What's the use right now? What goes on in that building currently?
It's a body shop. It's
It's a
a
body shop.
high-end body shop. Yeah, for the dealership. Yep.
All right. So what basically happens to all the cars that you've got stored out there?
Well, we have ample parking elsewhere. It just happens to be where they like to keep them because the bay doors are in the back and on the side, but that's not a problem. You're right, that when you go back there, previously you'll see cars parked because we had parking back there, but we have sufficient parking to accommodate the service vehicles.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you going to continue to park back there?
Yeah, they'll be parking around the pole. But it'll still have access. That fire road will still have access around the building and whatnot. That will never be blocked. And it's very well marked. And Richard and I went back there the other day. There's a big white line that shows where they can't park. And we actually had a conversation with the general manager of it, making sure that he understands that area needs to be left open. When the pole goes in, they'll be able to park around the pole, but they won't be able to block access between the fire lane and the pole, obviously.
Yeah, as long as and that's because again, I have Google Earth open and that whole area is nothing but cars. So you're going to need to leave it open, obviously along the fire lane. You're going to need to leave it open for, I guess, how often are people going to need to come in and maintain this, like access the pole and like reprogram it or whatever, you know what I mean? How often are people going to actually have to come in and massage this thing?
That's actually a really good question. And I asked the same thing because I wasn't sure either, because when we debated the whole parking issue, and my understanding is, and Ed can fill you in more than me, but it's very minimal that they actually go to the pole anymore. Once it gets built, everything's done remotely through, the computer. So there's very little to do unless there's some physical malfunction or defect, like I guess an LED goes out or something. But as far as routine maintenance goes, I would say once or twice a year tops. But Ed, could you chime in on that?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Initially, there's a flatbed brought in with the sign. It's usually in 4 sections. The pipe is brought in over a flatbed, which is depending on the height of the pole, it might be 2 or 3 sections of pipe. And that lasts a couple of days until it's settled. And then it sets in the, it cures for a period of a week or so, and then they can, fire it up. But as far as ongoing maintenance, it's done with a bucket truck, and it's infrequent. And most of the maintenance is remotely done because of the computer technology. If there is a situation where there has to be a changing of lights or whatever, it isn't like a bulb is popped out, it's sections of the board, square sections that are replaced, plug and play. So infrequent maintenance is necessary.
Okay, and just one of the two of you, either way, confirm for me this. The owner of the property is? Who is it?
WN Realty LLC, Richard Walker.
Okay, and who's the one who's putting up the pole?
WN Realty LLC, Richard Walker. He's
Okay,
doing it. He owns.
Exactly. So if there's a problem, he's gonna fix it.
Yeah.
If there's a problem with the parking, he's gonna get in there and he's gonna say, guys, move these cars now.
Yeah, he owns the dealership, he owns the auto body shop, he owns the land on both sides of this. I'm sorry, not both sides, but both in front and on the side, and he will be the pole owner. I mean, at some point he may sell it to a company, the pole itself, but he's still going to be the landlord. He's still going to own the property. So
right,
contact him anytime.
No, but either way, while this is getting underway, and and he's basically going to be responsible for. Again, he's going to be responsible for the pole.
Correct.
All right. So that kind of helps me there.
That's the point.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, these vendors that you'll see in the proposal, the application, have done this all over the country, and these are national players, and they manage their own operations, and they work well together as separate companies. I have no concern that this thing would be built properly. And as I said, the maintenance of it is done by the sign manufacturer for the sign. They maintain that sign. And then once the pole's done, there's no question about it. So I think Mr. Walker and his team are in good hands with the vendors.
All right. So you're saying you didn't get these guys off of Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist.
These are tried and true.
Yeah.
Tried and true.
All right. All right. I can live with that. And placement is, again, there's right of ways all over the place back here. There's the fire lane. I mean, you're proposing to be outside of all of that. So I see that.
You got it. Yes, purposely. And the right of way is not exclusive to the benefited party. We still have control of that land. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Because it's on that right of way is on our land. It's just
right.
Yeah. For the benefit of the other building, they get to go around back too, because they need fire access to their building, the back of their building.
Yeah. All right. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Mr. Rule, I'm going to go to you next.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. On the design specs, it says wood, Douglas fir. What is wood on this?
Nothing that I know of.
Well, it's got wood, Douglas fir, lock number 2.
Hold on. Ed, do you know anything about that? I didn't notice that, Tom. Sorry.
Okay.
Which one is this?
Right on the design specs.
Okay.
Whereabouts, Tom?
He said it's number 2. Is it on the RMG design specs, Tom, or is it on the?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Walkway. Let's see.
Be more specific. I mean, all I have is.
Oh yeah, it says what? Oh, wood, Douglas fir, larch number 2. I have no idea what that means.
Where is this? Where is this?
Want me to share my screen? Want me to share my screen, Rob?
Yeah, if you want to. I've got the plans up.
Yeah, it's right here. It's this is in the application, Rob, not the plan.
Okay.
Not the plans. The application materials contain the design specifications by RMG Outdoor Inc. This is the big company. And if you look here, it says wood, Douglas fir, larch number 2. I have no idea what that would be. That would mean, Tom. I apologize.
Okay. The other
Would
thing
that be
we
for the
have,
for-
the other concern I have is the maintenance on this. When does it get viewed from a structural engineer? Every year, every 2 years?
You know what? That's a good question, Tom. Ed, do you know?
I don't know of a requirement that it's reviewed by structural engineers. It's built in a way that withstands, I don't know if it's 150-mile-an-hour winds or some crazy number. But the permit with the state is renewed every year. Kind of a standard thing. But there's a chance every year that the state could come out and look at it if they so chose.
Okay.
Yeah.
And would I get that report?
Well, they don't, the state issues a report at the time of the state hearing by their engineers, because they do come out and they do a site visit in advance of the approval process for the board. They come out and they give their recommendation on whether or not the site fits the Commonwealth's regulations, et cetera. So there's a bit of a report there that I haven't seen given out. I've not gotten one. I'm sure it's public record and maybe could be made available, but that's prior to the building. I would think your building inspector is going to want to sign off on it before he, issues final approvals when it's
That's
built.
why he's bringing it up. You're talking to the building
years.
inspector.
I am the building commissioner. And
Oh,
I'm talking years down the road there, as far as the condition of it, the maintenance on it.
Yeah, Ed,
Not electrical, the structure itself.
right. Ed, in your experience from getting other permits, do you recall a condition that required like an inspection every 3 years or 5 years or whatever from a engineer
No.
or anybody?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
No.
Okay, and an exclusive example is that the outside staircase and fire escapes, they get inspected every 5 years. How often does this get inspected?
It's a good question, Tom. I don't know. I don't know if there's something in the state regs that require it, but I suppose, you could condition the permit that it gets inspected every 5 years, like a staircase,
Right.
Yeah, you could, I guess you could. I see where you're coming from for sure. You don't want the thing falling down in 10 years or something like that, I guess,
Yeah, you got your rust, you got concrete that could feather out, you got different issues. And that was it, Mr. Chairman. That and the Douglas fir, I didn't know what was wood. Is that just a template that they put in there all the time and they don't use wood? I don't know. Douglas fir, it's a hard wood, but I just wanted to know where it was used,
Yeah.
Would that be for the footings? When they pour the footing
Doug fir, I don't know.
So,
to take the pressure?
it's, what, for the
Forms?
for the forms themselves?
Right.
Oh,
No, when they pour the cement slab to put the pole, they put footings around it to hold the cement in place.
I would imagine that they would probably use a 2-foot diameter sonotube, like they do for lights and poles. They wouldn't use a wooden form for it. I would think they would go down 4 feet and use a sonotube.
No. You gotta look at
It's gonna be a big pad.
No, you gotta look at the spread footing on this one. The spread footing is 20 by 20? I think it's hard to tell, but it looks like it's 20 feet. And that is another question that I did have. This is as stamped by a civil engineer. Tom brings up a good point about structural engineers. I don't see anything from a structural engineer on this. Yeah, I don't see these as stamped by any structural engineer. And that makes me a little bit nervous. Again, he's probably got this right, but again, I'm looking at the spread footing. It looks like it's 20 feet long, but I don't have footing reinforcement. It looks like 20 by 24. There's 2 dimensions that show the depth on it. One says 5, one says 4.5. So I'm going back and forth on some of the design here, and I wonder about the civil engineering stamp on here, because typically civil engineers don't wouldn't stamp something like this. This would have been stamped by a structural engineer. So I'm wondering on that one.
Yeah, Rob, I can't imagine that this design wasn't signed off by a structural engineer, probably an in-house guy that does this for them. We could look into that for you. You know what I mean, to make sure that it's had some eyes on it from a structural engineer standpoint.
Yeah, I would direct everybody to that giant flagpole right across the street from Derby Shops in front of the new car dealership that's there.
Yeah.
That thing's like 80 feet tall. And the original structural engineer that designed the base for it had a 10 by 10 by 3 foot deep spread footing. And thank God the structural engineer for the project happened upon an email that had that design in there. And he called everybody that he could to get that stopped. They were about ready to form the dang thing. And he changed it, and it ended up being something like 30 by 30 by 10 feet deep. And all they wanted to put up was a flagpole, a flag that was like 30 by 50. And it's an enormous flag up there. I think everybody from this general area knows knows about it.
Yeah.
But that's why I look at this and I go to I go to my vice chair, Mr. Greg Tansey. Would you be stamping something like this?
Well, you bring up an interesting question. And I was actually, I discussed this with one of the board members of the professional engineering licensure. And a civil engineer can stamp a structural drawing if that engineer is, feels that he's competent to do so.
Okay.
But a civil engineer, he can't buy a stamp and put structural on it. Okay. But a civil engineer can stamp, a structural drawing. I mean, I've stamped, small retaining walls.
Walls under 4 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can see happening, but this is.
But this spread footing. I mean, there's probably more to it than that. I mean, he's probably, you're getting into wind loads on the bearing surface of the sign, which is 14 by 48, and so many feet high, and the torque and turning moment radiuses and bearing ratios of the soil and all that stuff. But I mean, a civil engineer, if he's confident and he's accounted for all those parameters, he is allowed to stamp it by under 250 CMR.
All right. No, that's fine. I know the issue that happened over at Derby Street with that flagpole. He's got all his calcs on the side of the page. And he's a Massachusetts registered civil engineer. If he's willing to put his stamp and his name and everything on the line, then fine. I have no problem with that. All right. So at this point, Steve, can I have you unshare that screen?
Yeah, you got it.
Oh, and I see there's other calcs that he'd also stamped on there. So he's got his name all over this. All right,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I'm not too worried about it now. All right, and at this point, if nobody else on the board, Mr. Rubel, has any questions, I'll open this up to the general public. Does anybody want to speak in favor of this application? Does anybody want to speak opposed? Hearing none. I'm going to go back to the board members. How do we want to change? How do we want to look into this? What do we want to do here? There's the potential for another application that came to us that we voted on and approved. I don't remember it. I'm saying that. I don't remember it. But the question has been opined, so I don't know what to do here. I don't know if we need to continue and look into this or what.
Mr. Chairman?
Baker Jr., talk to me, sir.
Yeah, I think you framed the questions perfectly. The questions that we need to resolve.
So here comes
You can
Attorney
make it-
Galvin, by the
Nice.
way, who may be able to just remind us what that was. And that this is my feeling is this is probably the only executed. So if it turns out they asked us to weigh in on it, subject to getting the executed agreement, and then this is the one that got the executed agreement, then it resolves the matter.
Attorney Galvin, how you doing, sir?
Good.
Got a
Is
few
Attorney-
seconds?
Is Attorney Riley here too?
Attorney Riley
Yeah.
is, yeah.
Okay, all right. I don't remember the board actually ever approving one. I think you were given some comments when there was a host agreement signed, but I don't remember a prior billboard.
Tim is adamant that we heard a billboard, we approved the special permit for a billboard. I don't remember it.
I just remember us having the hearing on it, and there was a host agreement attached to it. I don't remember the outcome.
Oh,
But I do, we just had a hearing on it and there was a host agreement. I don't recall if that host agreement had been signed. So I just wanted to raise the question, is this the only one, since we're only allowed one?
Yeah, we didn't have a bylaw that even authorized one until recently. And then
2019.
yep, and then we produced this bylaw that allowed one by special permit. I don't remember us actually approving one, although I did attend the selectmen's meeting when the host community, there was a meeting about this. Whether this applicant or another applicant would get this. And I seem to have a memory of us discussing this maybe to kind of give an opinion to the select board or the selectmen. But I don't remember granting a special permit for a billboard. It's possible when Bob Manzella was on the board, we had one. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Tim, you were on the board. That's right. You were with Bob too. Okay.
I want to say it had to do over by. It was over near the BMW gallery or somewhere over that area.
Possible. I just don't know. I don't see any others constructed. And again, I'm looking at Google Earth. It's an older, it's probably older imagery.
So really the question is, I'm not.
If it was granted, it was at least when Bob Manzella was on the board, and it's never been built. So
as long as we're clear to move forward, that was really just the question. So as long as we've got nothing to do, we can look at the other findings we have to make. But
those are whatever those conditions are, those are mandatory on you. Have to impose every one of them. So, all right.
So you think we're okay if we so decided we could approve this and not have to put in any extra conditions in there to check to see if there's another one?
Well, you could put a condition in there. It's subject to it being compliant with the only being one permitted requirements.
That kind of gets back to the question that we had after Tim originally raised the issue. How do we determine that, or also who determines that?
Well, is Tom Rubel on?
Yeah, I'm right here, Bob.
Yeah, no
Tom,
permitted issue. Yeah.
Tom, do you remember this?
No,
If I had my cell phone, I'm outside the ZBA meeting in Marshfield. I'd probably call Bob Manzella and ask him, because his memory might be better than mine on this, and ask him if there was another one.
I can give him a call.
What, do you want to call him, Tom? Because he might remember if there was another one.
Okay.
I mean, he or Candy might remember this off the top of their head. I have to step back into my other meeting. So if you don't mind, I'm going to turn this back to Tony, but
Tony's here. I think I know he can take care of it.
All right. Okay. Yeah, but what, I mean, look at, Bob Manzella or Candy would know. So let's see if they could give the answer, because I do have a memory of discussion taking place about another billboard, but I don't remember it. I don't remember a special permit being granted for one.
That's same here. I remember a discussion, but I don't remember us ever.
Like, for example, we might have denied a variance request, something like that. But, all right, I'm gonna run back into my other meeting, okay?
Thanks, Bob. I appreciate
Okay,
you.
thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I
And for me,
think-
the
I
strange
think
thing was
Attorney
just,
Galvin was right. I think it was over by the BMW dealer and they couldn't get, they wanted to lease the land from the state. And they couldn't come up with a price. And they walked away.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at the BMW dealer
the-
now. There's
the
nothing.
the state did put out a call for bids. In
They
order
had
to
to do
move
3
that piece.
bids.
So,
Right.
but it came to us with a community host agreement. So, but I'm comfortable with, attorney, this course of action, and it just,
All right.
my feeling is select board, they know it's one, they're going to just execute one, but it was just strange.
Mr. Rubel, what did Mr. Manzella have to say?
They never went to the board when he was chair.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. This is how. First and foremost, we need to close the close the open portion of this public hearing. I got a motion and a second. Before I say that, I want to make sure that everybody else has all of their questions. Is there any more questions from the board?
I have one thing I just want to throw out, because we didn't really quite close this discussion. So one of the conditions, one of the findings we have to make is that the special permit decision requires compliance with maintenance and inspection requirements. And so it's a strange roundabout. And so
Yeah, that's a weird way to say that.
So I thought before we close, our conversation with the applicants, we should maybe think about how we want to, it's going to be a condition, but we want to make sure that it's more specific about what those requirements are and where they come from.
Okay, and you're referring to letter F, section
5.
5, is that section 5 or number 5? Any special permit shall require compliance with maintenance and inspection requirements.
We need to require the requirements.
Okay. I'll go to Mr. O'Sullivan. Maybe you can answer this. Do you know what these maintenance and inspection requirements are?
Well, what I've seen before, Mr. Chairman, is maintenance in the sense that you understand it to be, which is maintaining the property, maintaining it in good condition. Usually the lessee has provisions in the lease. In this case, since Mr. Walker's owner of both the property and he's the lessee, usually in the lease, there are provisions that require the lessee to maintain it in good in good condition, be responsible for the down taking of the sign when the project is done, returning the property to its original form, that kind of thing.
All right. I'm looking at this number 5, and it says shall require compliance with maintenance and inspection requirements. If the zoning board were to grant the special permit, one of the conditions would probably end up being provide a maintenance and inspection, operate like a maintenance and inspection plan, provide that to the building inspector. And Tom, do you have any input on this? Do you have anything that you'd like to see them do?
Yeah, I would like, I would like to see a report from a structural engineer, say every 5 years.
That's what I got written down as a condition.
Okay. All right, so. All right, I'm gonna ask you to hang on during the decision-making process, Tom. Don't run away after that, because there's a couple things I'm gonna want your specific, I think I'd want your specific wording on, just to make sure that it covers exactly what you want. But other than that, Tim, what else? You got anything else? You've been good so far.
Oh, I'm not sure that's the way to put it. Right, just it requires, there'll be conditions requiring insurance and.
Yep.
But I thought, since the subject of maintenance came up before we closed the hearing, we should mention that so that everybody's in agreement on it. But I don't think there's anything else in here we've got to worry about.
All right.
We can attach other conditions and safeguards that we see necessary.
Attorney Guard, if one of the conditions was provide a maintenance and inspection plan submitted to the building commissioner, or something along those lines, delineating how you're going to inspect and maintain this over the course of time, something like that.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
That's fine.
whatever Tom wants. Yeah, whatever, that'll work fine. We can take care of that.
We're gonna do whatever we have to get this billboard in the ground.
Damn right.
We have, the bylaw says billboards, and structures are kept in good repair and free from tear, rust, and other indices of deterioration. So it's kind of a catch-all for maintenance, I think. So that could be a condition in there.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
it's my understanding that they have to renew a license from the state each year.
Attorney Guard?
Is that
Yes,
correct?
Yep, our outdoor advertising license renews every year, correct. Yep.
Well, in that license, are there maintenance obligations? I mean, the state can choose not to renew your license at any given year, and I would imagine if they were not going to renew it, it would be on the basis of some type of a hazardous condition or a lack of maintenance. Does that license require a certain obligation of the, I would imagine it would require or obligate the owner of the sign to keep it in good repair and to, provide the annual maintenance that's needed. Perhaps there's even inspectional personnel that go out there and inspect the thing once every 5 years or 2 years or whatever. I know that the state DOT does that with bridges every other year. I don't know what state agency is issuing this license, but maybe there's some obligation to the owner to maintain that structure. And my concern is I wouldn't want to produce a duplicate document or with potentially conflicting languages. So if there's any type of maintenance agreement associated with that license, it probably would be helpful for us if we had it.
Yeah, Greg, I think you're right. The state does have the right, obviously, to inspect the pole at any time that they deem necessary and on a regular basis as well, under our permit and the license. We have an outdoor advertising license, and we'll have a little site-specific permit for this sign through the state. I was trying to, in deference to the town of Rockland, to allow them the opportunity to impose upon us the right to, give them the assurances that the sign will be maintained properly, so that Tom would have his comfort level at some point in the future that it would be okay. You're not wrong.
If the state does do that, as long as I have a copy of that,
yeah,
I'm happy with that. But
That's what I was thinking, Tom. Maybe we just put a condition in the special permit that says, that every 5 years, we'll provide you with whatever state inspection sequencing is done by the state in lieu thereof, or if it's not done in a 5-year period, then we'll provide our own separate one that we'll do for you. Something along those lines where it kind of does, we don't have to do them together or duplicate efforts, but we'll give you one or the other.
That's
Something like
fine.
that. Whatever, to satisfy your concerns about the longevity of the pole.
Whatever Tom wants, Tom gets.
Pretty much.
Thank you.
I like that as a condition, so. All right, anybody else? What else we got? Everybody else good?
Mhm.
I have a motion and a second to close the open portion of the hearing. You're gonna get, before I run it, I need to get my, who's that?
Tony, I was talking to Bob earlier and he asked me to tell the board about a condition of that the special permit applies to the applicant only and doesn't run with the land.
Okay, yeah, in special permit, that's the way that it usually goes. We're not looking at variances, but as we were gonna have to look at the Steve, correct me. It's you applied for a potential variance because of the non-conforming nature of the frontage.
No, it wasn't a variance, Rob. It was just a finding that, that it wasn't substantially more detrimental to add this to the structure to the site.
Okay.
I'm not convinced it's necessary. I think it's covered under the special permit, but I didn't want to get here and have you go, Steve, it's a non-conforming lot. You need a finding. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh.
Yeah, no, I dig it. I understand. And it's.
I can certainly withdraw that if you think it's unnecessary. I can do that, or you can just vote on it.
I think we're fine on it. I think we can make it work just as is. It has to be one of the things that in the end that we're gonna have to decide. So, all right. So we got that. Everybody else, everybody's good? Yes? All right, because now I have my cheat sheet here. All right, I got a motion, I got a second, roll call. Mr. Baker Senior,
Yes.
Mr. Galley,
Yes.
Mr. Haynes,
Yeah.
Mr. Baker Junior,
Yes.
myself is a yes. Okay, hearing none, the board is okay. Close the open portion of the meeting. This is my cheat sheet. I apologize, I'm not looking at everybody. The board will deliberate tonight and you are welcome to stay. You will receive a decision in the mail with a date stamp, 21 days from the date stamp on the decision. Go to the town clerk's office. Request a certificate of no appeal. If no one has appealed, the town clerk will give you a certification and a copy of the original decision. Take those to the registry of deeds and have them recorded. One of the conditions is always to show the building department proof of recording. Do not, no, okay. That's it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, 5-minute bathroom break. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
I'll be back in a second. there's that. Okay, I got 1, 2, 3, 4. Mr. Galley, we'll wait for Mr. Galley. I'll assume there's Mr. Galley. I'm assuming Mr. Riley is still kicking around. And Mr. Rubel, I'm pretty sure he's probably kicking around too.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, who wants to speak first?
I'll make a motion to approve with conditions.
Second,
That was pretty simple. Got a motion in a second. Any discussion? Hearing none.
I just have a thought or a question. It's not nothing to make a decision, but they said that the board would have like local public use advertising or something. Would it be like town stuff? Like how much of that? How much is there? How much is there of that? Like you know, a minute a day or something? I was just curious.
It's in the community host agreement. It's
Yeah. All right.
very
I didn't
specific.
see. I scanned, but I didn't see. I wasn't that fast of a reader. But I was just curious. Just that's all. It wasn't like I said a decision factor.
17 minutes a day is going to be dedicated to Rockland music.
Yeah.
No, I got a motion. I got a second. Do we want to talk about the conditions before we make a motion or before we vote on the motion? Does that make sense?
yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to clarify the
First
conditions?
first and foremost, we got to look at the criteria for approval. I'm going to read this right out of the zoning. The zoning board of appeals shall not approve any applications for special permit under this section unless it finds that all of the following conditions are met and or incorporated into any special permit decision. Number one, the specific site is an appropriate location for the proposed billboard and the design and layout complies with the standards and requirements set forth in this bylaw. Anybody?
Agreed.
Agreed?
Agreed.
Everybody's happy with that, number one? Number
Yeah.
one, we're all happy with. The number two, the proposed billboard will not adversely affect the abutting neighborhood or have the effect of causing a hazard to motorists. Doesn't look like it. And
Agreed.
quite honestly, it's the base of this thing is like 12 feet below the highway. So I don't see this being a problem. Number three, any special permit decision shall require compliance with requirements relating to the provision and maintenance of insurance. I'm assuming that that's going to be a major component in this, so I'm not too worried about that. Any special permit,
Rob, when they do get the certificate for the insurance,
Mhm.
I think that should be given to Tom and he have it on file.
all right, so we'll provide, so as F3, provision and maintenance of insurance, a certificate shall be provided to the building commissioner.
The building inspector.
Okay, so that's number three. Number four, any special permit decision shall require billboards to have their permit numbers on them. I think that's fine. Any special permit decision shall require compliance with maintenance and inspection requirements. How do we word this? How do we want to word this? Tony, are you available?
Yeah.
How did it turn your camera on? I don't care that you didn't comb your hair. There you go. There's that part. Okay. How do we word this? How can we word this?
I missed like the first half of it. Sorry.
And no, it's F5 of the permit regs. Any special permit decision shall require compliance with maintenance and inspection requirements. I don't know of any within the town that we have. It's been raised that the state may have their own maintenance and inspection requirements.
So Rob, if I could just interject, just look at it, G1.
Supporting structures shall be kept in good repair and free from tear, rust, and other indices of deterioration.
So there's simple maintenance, and we can simply say compliance with maintenance and inspection requirements, and then I'd say let's throw in all billboards. And then to me, that says enough. And if we want to then put in, a structural engineer review
Mhm.
as required by the state, but no less than every 5 years.
That, I mean, I don't know, does the state have their own, where did I see this? Does the state have their own maintenance and inspection requirements?
So my thought was, since we don't know, we say that they'll submit their state reports as their state reports, but no less than a report to the town and less than every 5 years. So
Okay.
I think that was what they were agreeing to. Like, so if the state
No, and
requires it
that's-
every year, they submit it. If it's every 5 years, they submit it. If it's every 10 years, we get it every 5 years.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, for point of clarification.
Yes.
Mr. Haynes is right. The state under the CMR section 3.13 is maintenance of signs, and it doesn't get into the inspections that we're talking about tonight. It more has to do with the ground maintenance. So you can require something obviously greater than the Commonwealth's regulations. And I think what Mr. Haynes just recited would qualify as something greater than the regulations. The regs are fairly silent to structural, unless the sign is being changed for any reason, if it's a
Mhm.
grandfathered sign. And so there are certain provisions, but this particular side wouldn't fall under those particular provisions of the Commonwealth. So you can do this requirement of a structural maintenance review every 5 years would seem fair.
Is that, and Tom, are you happy with that?
Yes, that would be fine. Long as I get the report from an engineer, I'm happy.
Okay, Tony, that works.
Yes.
And Deb, you've got that kind of in a written state, sort of? Okay. All permits are subject to any necessary approvals, restrictions, and conditions required and or issued by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and or the federal government. So applicant shall obtain
Meet all requirements of all state, federal, and town requirements.
Deb, you got that? Is that a yes or? All right, okay. Let's see. Zoning board in granting the special permit shall attach such additional condition. Yeah, that's what we're doing right now. Number 8, there shall be in place a valid host agreement, which we've got. Permitted and abandoned shall be subject to section G1, G2, G3. And again, shall be subject to the special permits shall be subject to all permit requirements based on the bylaw, something like that.
Yeah, compliance with the bylaw.
Yeah. All right. Deb, what do you got? Let's start with number 1, just to go over, make sure we got everything.
So I'm just gonna pull them right from the bylaw that you read them from.
And actually, now that I look at that, now that we talk about this, Steve's narrative had a lot of this put together, I believe. He had said that. Steve, are you kicking around?
Yeah, Rob, a lot of that stuff's in there. The only thing I didn't do was I think the section on the special permit issued, like the comply with the Massachusetts state law, comply with the maintenance requirements, those things you guys just itemized.
Yep.
Which should be also added in on the other section, but the other findings,
Mhm.
findings that you need to make are certainly in the sections 21.3 E, all the findings, and then the conditions would be the ones you just did. So
Okay.
that's how I would do it. Yeah.
Is that something, would you be able to forward a Word doc copy to Deb?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That way, just
Sure.
that way,
Cut and
for
paste.
cut and paste purposes, Deb, does that work for you?
Yeah, that works. Yes.
Okay. All right, we've gone over everything. Board members,
Rob, I have one question.
please.
We're issuing a special permit for this sign.
Mhm.
can we require the original property to keep that fire access road clear of all cars at all time?
Sure.
You absolutely can. They already do that. They already do that, but I like the, I'd like to, I think adding that in as a condition, just to restate the fact. I think that's worth it.
Fair,
And then
yep, fair condition.
They can
Yep,
show it to the landlord or the renter that,
the operator. Yep.
All right, so yeah, I
It's-
appreciate that. No, that makes a ton of sense. All right, Deb, you got that in there too?
The access road, right?
the access
yeah,
fire
fire.
road.
Fire, yeah, fire lane. I think it's called a
Yeah,
fire lane.
yeah.
No parking, full access through the fire lane shot, as shown on the record plan, should be maintained, free and clear. Something along those lines.
Got it.
What else we got?
Hours of operation from 5 AM to 1.
I
1
thought
a.m.
it
and
was
5
1
a.m.
to 5.
Yeah. 5 to 1. You're right. That's what the host agreement allows. 5 to 1.
5 AM to 1 AM.
You got it.
Okay.
Mhm.
What else we got?
I think I noticed too, Rob, that the host agreement says, let me just double check. I think it's every 10 seconds. For
Okay.
the change. Just so you're consistent with them.
Non-electric, provided sound service less than 30 days.
Steve, page 6, subsection 3. I'm sorry, subsection 2 is every 10 seconds.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it's every 10 seconds instead of the 8 that we were talking about. There was the 8 was the threshold, lowest threshold. We wanted 10. So
All right, so still within the conditions, obviously subject to the community host.
Host.
yeah, that's fine too. You just do that. Sure.
All right,
It's all dialed in right there.
all right.
With the hours for the community notices, I think it's 10 a month or whatever, but that's the same thing.
Okay.
Yep. It's all in the.
All right, Steve, you've heard all the conditions that we've gone through. Are you?
We're good.
We're fine.
Yep.
We're fine. Deb, you comfortable?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Rubel, you comfortable?
Got it.
Board members, I've got a motion to approve with conditions as stated. I've got a second. The roll call, Mr. Baker Senior,
Yes,
Mr. Haynes,
Yes.
Mr. Galley,
Yes,
Baker Junior,
Yes.
myself is a yes. Painless.
Thank you so much, folks. Very excited.
All right, we'll put this, oh, and actually, so, I mean, that's the special permit, but the other thing that we have to talk about is it was the section 6 finding, on the fact that it's a pre-existing non-conforming lot with,
Should we
minimum.
deny it as moot?
I've got a motion. Do I have a second? I got a second. Oh, Mr. Baker Junior, he beat you. I got a second to deny that as moot. Mr. Baker Senior,
yes,
myself is a yes. Mr. Haynes,
Yes.
Mr. Galley,
yes.
Mr. Baker Junior.
Yes.
Done. So I think that covers it all, right?
Believe so.
All right, Tony, you happy with the way this went?
Yes.
Go to bed, dude. You look like you need a beer or something. Never let it be said that the Rockland Zoning Board of Appeals doesn't have a little bit of fun every once in a while, dude.
We
That's
do.
for sure. That's for
Only
sure.
Tuesday.
All right. So
All
that's all taken care of. Is there anything else that we need to take care of based on the agenda? Trying to find it here. I had it up. Here it is. Deb, is there anything else that we need to talk about?
Can I just ask one question?
Please.
Where do you stand now in the permitting process?
Oh,
I
you
guess
mean, Deb,
with
you're
the
asking me?
Per Attorney God, yes.
Yeah, so how it works now, guys, is that once we get this permit, we get it filed with the town clerk's office, we get the 20-day appeal period. On the 21st day, we grab it. In the meantime, we're going to begin the state application now because we know we have a decision, a favorable decision from you. We are likely, I think we're shooting to file for the state, I think mid-April, the next few weeks. That'll get us out of the appeal period and we'll be confident to go forward. If there's a push to get filed with the state before that, we think that if we get filed within April, we'll be before the state in June.
Okay,
We'll literally have a hearing like this before the state sometime in June. That's the anticipated date. So
Typically, nobody files for anything until they get the permission from the zoning board.
right,
Because it makes no sense to do anything unless the zoning board says you can, so.
right.
They won't accept it without the final approval through the appeal process.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
right. And again, Deb, do we have anything else that we have to talk about tonight? I don't have the agenda in front of me, so I don't know if anything else was listed on here.
We do not.
All right. I would,
Motion to adjourn.
I got motion. I got a second. We're gonna roll call. Mr. Baker Senior,
Yes.
Mr. Haynes,
Yes.
Mr. Galley,
Yes.
Mr. Baker Senior, or Mr. Baker Junior.
Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're done. Go home.
thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night,
Thank you all.
everyone.
Thank you all for coming.